So everyone's talking about how short is Trey Lance's leash. If he's losing at halftime, will the vets on the team go to Kyle and say, we have no confidence in Trey. We want Jimmy. If he loses the first game, will Trent Williams, Debo Samuel, George Kittle go to Kyle and say, we voted, we've spoken, the vets want Jimmy? I don't know. It seems like they like Trey Lance too. I don't know if they're necessarily going to turn on him right away, barring a 4-pick game. There are some other players on this team that have a short leash, including Lance. Maybe which players on this team do you think have the shortest leash? And is Lance in that group?
Let's go one by one, because I don't want to say them all and then take some of your players. And I have a few of them. I'm actually going to start with the running back position. I think Elijah Mitchell has a short leash.
Yeah.
Like if he comes out and looks sluggish right away, he doesn't look explosive.
Right.
Maybe he has an early fumble, something crazy, which he didn't do last year. They easily are like, dude, we got Jeff Wilson Jr., we got Mason, we got TDP. We're not riding with you. And a short leash at that position could put you all the way at the back of that depth chart. It really could, because Shanahan doesn't mess around. I feel like he rides the hot hand. I think Elijah Mitchell right now has a very, very short leash going into one.
He's been healthy for like 2 weeks this offseason. So to me, a little bit like last year, Jeff Wilson Jr. didn't look like himself because he was never healthy. He never had the offseason to get into football shape. Well, that's Mitchell this year. Jeff Wilson Jr. has been healthy the whole offseason. He's in tip-top shape. Mitchell, it's hard to say that he is. So I can see that.
By the way, Jeff Wilson Jr., a lot of people think he's older. I get the feeling people think he's older. He's only 26. Like he's still, and he doesn't have a lot of carries under his belt. Like he really could be a bell cow for a season, barring health. Obviously, that's a big thing, but
he's a 3-down back, good blocker, good receiver, good player. It's just that he runs upright and tends to get hurt. I mean, he had the high ankle sprain, the knees. If he could stay healthy, I mean, he could lead the team in rushing. He could.
Yeah.
He did 2 years ago. He had 10 touchdowns 2 years ago.
Yeah, he did. That Patriot game, man, I'll never forget that Patriot game. Oh my gosh.
He was the best player on the field in that game.
Oh yeah, by a wide margin.
He was crazy good. Yeah. Okay. So let me name a name. Aaron Banks. Never started a game in his career. He might be Josh Garnett. He could get replaced immediately by the guy they picked up today off of waivers. What's his name? I forget his name. Hance.
No. They picked up. Is it Hance?
Hance, whatever. What is dude's name?
Cleveland.
Yeah, from Cleveland.
Yep.
His name is.
They also have Poe sitting there too, that they could call up at any time.
Blake Hance, of course. Him, Poe, McKivitz. I mean, there's so many options. So him. Who else?
I think. Yeah, I said no. Yeah, I do. I think any three of those guys on the interior have a short leash. To be real with you, I could see Brendel having a short leash. I think there's a reason why they kept Zakelj on this roster. I think they look at him as a center long term. I really do.
Yeah.
And so, whether it's him or if I think Brunskill's health plays into this because he could come in as well, a veteran that they trust. Yeah, I do. I think any one of those three interior offensive linemen certainly could have a short leash. I really do.
With Zakelj, I think the thing they like about him as opposed to Poe is Zakel's kind of like Brunskill in the sense that he can theoretically, they feel like they can project him playing all 5 positions. Both tackle spots, both guard spots, and center. Because he's a guard right now, but he's 6'6". He's got the body to play tackle if he needs to. And he apparently can play center too, or they want him to. That's Brunskill. And Brunskill's hurt, and Brunskill's not going to be on the team next year. He's going to be a free agent. And I'm sure they're thinking 1 year ahead of time, and maybe they're thinking he is the next Brunskill. So, as opposed to Poe, who can't play tackle, too short.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Someone said
he might be a good guard though someday.
Someone said to Trent Williams, Jason Poe, he's so short. He's 6'1". He's like, is he? They list him at 6'1". Like, are you sure he's 6'1"? I don't know.
He's not 5'11"?
Are you sure he's not 5? So, yeah, a little bit different.
Have you been able to stand next to him and try to gauge how tall he actually is? Because you're about 6'1" yourself, right?
It's hard to tell. He's got a couple inches on the fro, which is always deceiving. Yeah.
All right. And he's got cleats on probably.
Yeah. And then the thing with Trey Lance's leash, it's interesting because I don't know if you heard Kurt Warner talking with Rich Eisen about this. He's talking about his situation where he was on the Giants when Eli Manning was a rookie. And Eli was terrible that year. And, Kurt Warner was decent. And I guess, they benched him frequently for Eli because they were trying to prepare for the future. And a lot of players in the team aren't necessarily concerned about the future, part of the future. They want to win. And they wanted Kurt Warner to start. And it's kind of explaining the kind of pressure that can come from inside your own locker room if you're not winning with the young quarterback. But again, I don't necessarily foresee the Niners losing a bunch of games and Trey being the reason. If he is, we'll talk about it at that time. I just don't see that happening. I don't either. I really don't. But it is interesting. I mean, it's funny because we didn't actually even have this as a full topic. But to me, like, it's interesting because I keep hearing this phrase thrown out there. Well, if he doesn't want to get benched, that's on him. As long as he plays good enough, he'll stay in. Nobody would have said that if it was Purdy or Sudfeld back there. Not a single person. Now, all of a sudden that it's Jimmy Garoppolo, this perceived leash gets a lot shorter. Now, that doesn't mean that's what Shanahan's thinking, but that's what the fans are thinking. And I find it really odd because if Jimmy has to play an extended amount of time, he's not winning a Super Bowl either. Like, they don't have, if Trey Lance isn't the answer at quarterback to win a Super Bowl this year, they don't have that answer on this roster. Exactly,
they don't have the answer.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. You've got to let him go through his growing pains. Again, this is why they should have done it last year, like we said the whole time.
Exactly. That's a good point. Like, just pressing the eject button after one loss. Say they lose to Chicago week 1 and Trey Lance is shaky. Like, experiment over, going back to Jimmy. Going back to Jimmy to do what? To be a wild card team and run the ball in the playoffs and come up short? Like, great. That's who you are. It's like, you can understand it. It's like the Blazers. They clung to that Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum backcourt forever. It's like, yeah, like, it makes you guys playoff team. You'll win 45, 50 games, sell playoff tickets. You're not going to win a champion. It's not going to work. How many years do you have to go to the playoffs and lose before you figure out it's not good enough? You have to blow it up and try something different. That's my analogy. Like, it happens a lot in the NBA. A team tops out. The Jazz. You're not going to make it. Blow it up. Do something different. I think the Niners topped out with Jimmy Garoppolo. So going back to him, it's like, okay, it'll feel good when you have a few more wins and losses and you go to the playoffs, but you're not going to win freaking Super Bowl. So what's the deal?
I talked for 4 years about getting rid of CJ McCollum. Like, I knew it wasn't going to work forever, Grant. I swear.
Yeah, it's true.
But no, that's just it, right? Like, so that's the perceived answer, right? Is, we know we can win games with Jimmy, but it's like the ultimate goal is to win a Super Bowl. Winning games is not, that's not the goal here.
Yeah.
Now, I do love the Jimmy.
We could be the 7th seed with CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard. Like,
right.
So
who cares?
So yeah.
Who cares? Exactly. Yeah. So it's like, yes, I like having a really good backup just in case you need a few games. That makes sense. But if it's like, well, listen, if Trey's not performing, we get to pull him and put in Jimmy and we'll be good. No, we won't be good. We won't be good. We just won't.
And Kyle Shanahan's stock will really take a hit if he just gives up on Trey Lance after 3, 4, 5 starts. Like, dude, you gave up the farm for this guy. People don't forget. You can't just switch back and be like, you know what? Psych. Like, no, you can't play. You can't just pull the psych card. Psych.
Everybody keeps saying it's Trey Lance's fault if he gets pulled. No. It's Kyle Shanahan's fault. If this doesn't work, it's not on Trey Lance. It is on Kyle Shanahan. True. Kyle Shanahan's the one that made the choice. Kyle Shanahan's the one that decided to sit him. Kyle Shanahan's the one that decided to put this offensive line in front of him. Yep. Kyle Shanahan is the one that decided to bring back Jimmy Garoppolo. If Trey doesn't work, it's not a Trey problem. It's a Shanahan problem.
But here's how Kyle made it very complicated. Had he got rid of Jimmy last year as soon as because when you make a trade like that, you usually just get rid of the quarterback and start the young guy and go with it. But he didn't. He kept Jimmy. It was highly irregular. And the idea was, we like Trey, but we're not just going to throw him in there and live and die with his growing pains. We're going to play him when he's ready, right? No one knows what ready is. But if he comes out here and doesn't look ready the first couple of games, then by Kyle's own logic, he shouldn't be playing. Because the whole idea was he's going to be seasoned. He's going to sit and season on the practice squad, on the scout team. And then when he's ready, he'll play. So Kyle created a referendum on Kyle. On Trey? Is he ready? Is he ready? Is he ready? Every play, every throw, right? So I mean, that's the thing. If he doesn't look ready, if they lose a couple games, they might go back to Jimmy just so they can win and feel good about themselves while Trey gets ready. While I would say the only way you can get ready is by freaking playing.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Yes.
And frankly, if he's not ready after last year, what does that say about your plan, your ability to develop him on the bench? Maybe that doesn't work. Maybe he needs to play. See, it's a tough spot. It's a really tough spot.
But it's a spot that he's put himself in, right?
Yep.
Like this is the spot that he chose. So however it falls, that's why I think he's going to be stubborn with it. I really do. I think the thought that Jimmy's there, and so maybe the leash could be short. I really don't think it's as short as what people think. And that's why I think talking about some of these other players that probably do have some short leashes is important, because I think they're more realistic.
Look, I think Kyle wants to give Trey a very long leash. That's his guy. Players are different. Players want to win now. That being said, all the vets on this team are locked up long-term. So the future should be important to them. Debo's here for 3 years. Kittle's here for a few more years. Armstead, everyone's locked up except for Bosa, who's going to get locked up. So they should be invested in the future, I think. What key player on the Niners needs to get to the Super Bowl this year to be validated and get paid?
Nobody. To get paid? Nobody.
Not that kind of team. No. So I think these team leaders should really think hard. And if they turn on Trey after 1 or 2 games, shame on them. Because what are you going back to? The 20th best quarterback in the league? Give me a break. I mean, it's not like you're saying, it's Joe Montana. We can't afford to let Trey Lance learn. We got freaking Joe. You don't have Joe Montana. It's like, which quarterback do you want to make mistakes? The guy who never learns from them, or the guy who's 22 and might just improve? Who do you want out there making mistakes? I'll take Trey.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's exactly what it has to be. I agree with you. I think the perceived leash is really not that big of a deal. I don't think it's that short at all. I really don't.
CJ Smooth says, what's the likelihood Jordan is a starter midseason? I think it could definitely happen. I mean, last year, no one thought Elijah Mitchell was going to be the leading rusher going in, like when week 1 started. No one was like, hey, watch out for Elijah. And then 20 carries a game. Why couldn't Jordan do that?
Yeah, and here's the funny thing, too, about preseason. Last year, if you remember, it was Sermon was the next man up. But as soon as Mostert went down, it wasn't Sermon that came up. It was Mitchell, right? And even this year,
we don't know the pecking order right now.
Right, exactly. And even this year, when some of the corners went down, it was guys like Knight who they cut and took a chance on. Guys like Castro Fields that were the starters.
Right.
But they didn't make this team. So it's funny, they do these things in preseason where you have this perception that, this guy is next in line. He's on the depth chart. That's not always the case. Teams just play guys to play guys sometimes.
We don't even know who their starting running back is going to be week 1. It could be Jeff Wilson Jr.
Yeah.
He's had a great offseason. Elijah Mitchell's been hurt most of the time. So we don't even know. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Carlos says Lance needs to make good plays with Kittle. When this happens, he's going to be all right. Mullins could, right? 3rd down, hit Kittle. Yeah, that's a good lesson for any quarterback coming in. Throw to Kittle.
Yeah.
Throw to Kittle. I mean, the thing with Kittle is they overuse him. He gets worn down. He misses time. But when he's out there and healthy, throw to Kittle. They can't throw to Kittle enough. In fact, they don't throw to Kittle. Throw to him in the red zone, end zone. Throw to Kittle. He catches the ball.
Throw to Dwelly. Dwelly's got the sure hands.
That's a good point. Scott says, if the interior O-line is bad as expected, don't see Jimmy doing any better than Lance. Alex Mack retiring after free agent and draft really bothers me. I mean, it sounds to me like Alex Mack was pretty clear. Like, hey, guys, I'm probably not going to play this year. I'm getting married. And the Niners were like, think about it. He was like, nah, I don't think I'm going to play this year. They're like, don't rush into a decision. They're like, I don't want to play football anymore. And they're like, hey, come on, take a little time. I think they were, I don't know, but it just felt like they were in denial about it. How old? He's almost 40 years old. What was he going to do?
Even the way they talked about it, it sounds like they were in denial because every time they were asked, they're like, we think we know, but we'll let him tell you guys. Exactly. Okay, bud. We get it.
Yeah. Also, there's a little bit of we're getting to know Chris Forster, the offensive line coach. A couple things about him. Kyle trusts him. He's old school. I think his dad knows him. Kyle trusts him. I think he worked for his dad. 2, he has very strong opinions. 1 is that Jake Brendel is the truth, even though the guys played like no, not at all. So Chris Forster has a hot take. Kyle believes him. We'll see if Chris Forster is the truth, because if he's right about this, then wow. I mean, how did you know? How did you know?
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Yeah.
3 snaps in the last 3 years. Snaps last 3 years. Wow.
Literally the Raheem Mosterts of centers. I love it. We'll take it.
Unreal. Jesse Pridgeon says, seems like some Niners fans are okay with just being a playoff team.
I agree.
I
agree with that.
Too.
I also go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think 49er fans, some 49er fans genuinely do think that when you say, oh, they can't win a Super Bowl with Jimmy, they're like, well, how can you say that? They made it. Just look at the history of the league, right? I think there's been 11 Super Bowls out of 56 or whatever that have been won by non-Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks. Okay. Yeah. A lot of non-Hall of Fame caliber quarterbacks make it to the Super Bowl. They don't win a lot. When you talk about guys like Flacco and Nick Foles, these are exceptions, not the rules. And I challenge you, go find a non-Hall of Fame quarterback that made the Super Bowl, lost, and made it back. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, like there's a one-off, and Jimmy had his chance, and he fumbled it. He blew it. Sorry.
And that, by the way, that number shrinks even more when you go from non-Hall of Fame caliber down to players that have never made a Pro Bowl. Because guys that people say, oh, journeyman, horrible quarterback, most of those guys made Pro Bowls, including, guess what? Trent Dilfer.
Also, his numbers in the playoffs are terrible. They're even worse in the fourth quarter. You look at Flacco's numbers in the playoff, they were great. Foles' numbers in the playoffs, they were great. So those guys, like, they would take their game to another level. Like, who the hell do you think you are? And why are you playing this well? Jimmy's not like that. Jimmy plays his best in November. Bruna says he laughed when Panthers re-signed Cam as a replacement for Darnold, who replaced him in the first place. We laugh. Niners did the same. History repeats itself. Good point, Maruna. Great point. Sean Weaver says the only way I'd like to the bench after 2 games is if Trey committed 6 turnovers in each game, but the likelihood of that happening is incredibly slim. Yeah, but it seems like people really think that he's going to go out there and just
wet the bed,
fall in his face.
Yeah.
And people talk about him having a really bad preseason. People keep saying he really struggled in preseason. He had no turnover-worthy plays, and his numbers were way better than Jimmy's numbers were in the preseason last year. But again, nothing Jimmy does is counted. It's like, okay, he'll be fine. He wins. Trey, I'm just trying to point out he's under so much scrutiny. He puts up decent numbers in the preseason. People are like, he was terrible. I was like, well, actually, he was objectively way better than Jimmy was on the same team in preseason last year. Like, well, that doesn't matter. Why are you talking about preseason stats? You're the one talking about preseason stats with Trey. Well, it's like, okay. So there's there's the Trey rubric and the Jimmy rubric. The Jimmy rubric is handsome, wins games, check. Trey is like, well, that lead foot and the wobble and it's like it's an endless list of things that he can't ever. Sorry, what's going on?
Do you remember game 2 of 2019, that preseason, when Jimmy Garoppolo in practice threw 5 straight interceptions, right? Yeah. Which was a big deal.
Yeah.
Then in that same game against the Broncos, came out, went 1 for 6.
Yeah.
With an interception and had a second one that was dropped.
Yeah.
With a, I think, 0.0 passer rating.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if that was Trey Lance? Just think about for a second if that happened to Trey Lance. The sky would fall. Like, people would lose their minds about it. And it's just funny to me how nitpicky we are. There was a video floating around of Trey Lance throwing a 50-yard pass in practice the other day. I literally had somebody comment on that, Grant, and say, it was a nice throw, but I wish the receiver was running instead of standing still.
Trey, tell him, Trey. That's funny.
Dude.
Yeah. Organize the drill better. JC says, hey, Grant and Jesse. Grant, how does access to the locker room affect coverage as a journalist? Do you think it'll be helpful this year? Plus the Jacko or Andre Nicotina, cool shirt, Johnny Croft. First question first. Access to the locker room, I don't know. They haven't opened up the locker room yet. I don't know. We'll see. It's been a while. I'll let you know, but it will change things. And then I do think it'll be helpful too. Jack or Nicotina, Jacka, but they're great. And they made music together, but the Jacka for sure. Good question.